Hi, this is my Spogani, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. I want to deal with a topic that speaks about dealing with troublesome church members. And I must say this, that I'm sure many of you pastors will agree with me, that we got a lot of troublesome members in our churches. People that give you headache, people that you feel like, giving them away. You feel like you can actually donate them to the church next door as an offering. Can put them in an envelope and send them to the church next door, to the pastor next door as an offering, so that they can fellowship there instead of giving you headache in your church. Now, there are many of those in our churches, and it becomes very, very difficult to deal with those. And I want to just give some few tips of how to deal with people that are troublesome in our churches, so that you can be able to manage your church better. Because when you've got troublesome members, what it does, it actually affects those people that are not even troublesome. And it affects them, it actually disturbs them, it makes them to even not commit. And some of them walk out of the church while they are very useful and valuable themselves in the church. So you need to therefore be able to deal with the troublesome members in order to keep the church afloat and make sure that everything progresses very well without any problem. The first thing that I want to speak about today is you need to write your vision for all to see. You need to write your vision clearly for all to see. And what I advise generally is let your vision be clear in a notice board in the church whereby everybody can be able to see. And if it's possible to write your vision even on a board outside the church, that board, that billboard that announces the church, that shows the services, if you could write your vision there as well, that could be very, very useful. But in the notice board within the church, it is very important as well, because when you've got your vision clearly written, everybody knows exactly what direction you're taking, so that whatever needs to be done, people know that it is done because of this particular rationale. If there is a reason for doing something, it will be based on the vision itself. The vision is therefore important that everybody knows about it. Because when people know about the vision, people tend to become focused, and therefore you'll realize that there are some of the people that we call in them troublesome, only to find that they are not even having a clue of what the vision of this church is all about. And whatever they are trying to do is according to their mind for the good of the church, but only to find that they are disorganizing the church by trying to do what they are doing, while from their point of view is actually in a good spirit. Now, the interpretation of troublesome members should be based on the vision itself, should be based on the fact that the people know the vision and they know exactly what to do regarding the vision, so that you can be able to differentiate if the people are troublesome on their own will or not. Secondly, it is very important, therefore, to have clear structures in place, departments in the church, whereby you would know that there is a structure called the Women Fellowship. There must be some outreach department as well. You speak about whereby you're having the music team or music department clearly separated from other departments, seen as different, and also the media department being separated particularly clearly from the music department, whereby everybody knows sort of their roles, and the departments sort of know their roles as well. They know exactly what is expected from them. Because when people don't know what is expected from them, they tend to cross lines and cause confusion. They tend to disturb other departments without being cognizant of that. So therefore, it gets back to the first point that I mentioned, that when people know their vision, when people know also their roles, they should be a bit more focused. And therefore, it will be easier for you as a leader as well to identify when people are untoward, when people are actually troublesome members, so that you can be able to correct them as well, in line, of course, with the structures that you're having. Some of the structures that we're speaking about are policies of the church, whereby we know what are the policies, what is expected from the members to do, what are the processes when it comes to membership taking, what are the processes of induction in the church. And when all those processes are in place, everybody knows where they are, they know what to do, and they know how to do it as well. It becomes more easier actually to address that and to be able to deal with the members that seems to be troublesome, because you just simply align them to the processes and the policies and even the systems of the church that are already existing. And that becomes very important, that therefore we have the systems and the processes and the policies in place so that we can align the people based on that. And thirdly, I would love to also emphasize that you need to have a clear disciplinary code, because in churches it's rare that you find people having a clear disciplinary code, because people have actually thought that discipline should be something to do with workplace. And that's not only that. And I want to emphasize that in church as well, pastors, please have a disciplinary code and let everybody know it in advance. And let it not be formulated for individuals, but let it be formulated well in advance so that the individuals know what are the consequences of any type of a behavior, so that when they go through disciplinary process, they don't see that as being tailor-made for them. Because then it becomes troublesome when people think that you're setting rules for them, when people think that you're putting up policies for them, when they think that you are actually punishing them because it's them, and you're basically having a face to this disciplinary code. But when the code is set in advance and everybody knows it, people will know what are the consequences of any type of behavior. If somebody is dividing the church, somebody's confusing the people, or even causing a problem in the church, somebody would know what the consequences would be. Somebody would know what the disciplinary code says about this. And therefore, people should know in advance. And that will help the people actually as well to keep in narrow and straight and make sure that they don't actually violate the policies and the processes of the church knowingly. And that's very important. Ensure all your leaders comply as well, because the biggest problem in churches, I must mention, is when you don't have leadership that complies to policies and processes. When you have a leadership that is also violating the principles and the policies that you put up. When you've got leadership violating that which you put up, or the disciplinary codes as well, it makes it difficult for you as a leader to actually announce and get the congregants follow the principles when the leadership are not following the principles. So therefore, I've taught previously that when somebody's a leader, they must take an oath of knowing that they will be narrow and straight. They will be able to obey and comply to all the policies and principles of the church, so that they can be an example of the people. They can be the role model of the people. They can set a way or a pathway for people to actually know what is expected in this church. Because you cannot keep on announcing things that your own leaders are not obliging to. Your leaders must be the first ones who buy into any announcement, who buy into any policy and process, and be able to obey that. Because when the leaders are obeying, it's difficult for you. It's easier for you to convince actually the congregants. And remember, they are looking up to the leaders. When you are having your leaders following and complying, it's easier for people to obey, because people will know that everybody else is obeying. And their leadership as well, they will actually have guts to approach the people and correct them. Because you cannot correct people, of course, of things that you yourself do not comply of. And that becomes difficult for any church leader to do so. I want to also mention the fact that you need to confront and reprimand unacceptable behaviors and snap that off the bud immediately. And if there is unacceptable behavior, that must be clear. But I've said earlier that you cannot say something is unacceptable just out of the blue. Something must be written down that unacceptable behavior is this. So in other words, it must be well defined and well explained what unacceptable behavior is, because you're not going to be able to correct the people of unacceptable behavior that looks like a rule that is actually directed to individuals, not to everybody. So therefore, when you've laid out during the disciplinary code and process that you have actually put down, or something that you have written down that this is unacceptable behavior. For instance, gossiping about the pastor. For instance, confusing the church by by teaching wrong things in the church, or for instance, pulling the people to the other directions and making people rebellious and so on. Things like that. Those are type of behaviors, division of the church by gossips and so on, and all these type of things. That there are type of things that we find in most of the churches that we have people doing that. But line it up, put it down, and write it, and clearly let everybody know that this is unacceptable behavior. Because you cannot now start labeling it unacceptable behavior only because somebody has done wrong. So please let it be well in advance and let everybody know what is unacceptable behavior. And therefore, when you are rebuking that and you are correcting that and reprimanding it, people are understanding, therefore, that this has always been known as unacceptable behavior. Therefore, it's easier to reprimand people based on that, because you cannot start reprimanding people of something that was not existing at all. Very, very important. Now, give options of corrective actions with deadlines as well. By any means, when people have deviated or people have not complied with the behavior or the principle or policies of the church, therefore, make sure that whatever disciplinary process that you institute, you make sure that you give options of corrective actions as well with the deadlines, whereby you tell people by end of this month we want this to be corrected, or in 3 months time we want this to be sorted out. And if things are not changing, and this may be what possibly will happen, and let people know in advance, because if people know that, then that could be a corrective behavior. And if you can also incentivize people to actually focus or follow what we call corrective behavior. If people changes, therefore incentivize them to make them aware that you appreciate their change, so that even other people that may be wrong, they would know, therefore, that you're not only punitive in your approach, but you're also incentivizing as well for positive behavior. That's very important. And some of the people, remember, they're going to rely on positive incentive rather than punitive approach. Many people don't react well to punitive approach, and therefore I want to urge you as a leader that you make sure that you give deadlines to whatever you've put up as corrective actions, and let people know exactly when is that deadline, and so that they can be able to correct themselves towards that. So empower all the leaders to institute discipline, because when we speak about discipline, it should not be only the senior pastor who's able to institute discipline. It must be delegated to all the leaders. So in their departments, wherever they are, let them be able to stand firm, all of them, and be able to manage their own departments. And if they instill discipline in those departments, let them be able to do so, because you've given them powers to do so as well. Very, very important that we delegate actually the authority and let people be able to discipline in their own departments. And we know that this doesn't only need the senior pastor to sort out, but everybody else can do that. And this is very important that we also look at, be prepared to the gross and chronic uncompliance people. So be prepared to deal with that, be prepared to fire them, be prepared to discipline them, be prepared as well to take any action. But because when you don't take actions to the people that are mischievous and behaving wrong, you are actually discouraging those that are behaving right, because they are seeing you not dealing with untoward behavior. And when they see you doing that, and therefore everybody would feel is free for all, and therefore they will actually be misbehave as well. I want to end up here today. Your host, Maikona Spokane. Thank you very much for listening to us and being part of this great topic. I hope you've learned a bit out of it. And I also want to urge you, please, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our social media platforms as well, like those platforms, and make sure that you're notified for any video that we post for this type of topics. And may the good Lord bless you and allow us to say cheers for now.